our COVID work experiences, the work experience we gained during this pandemic, might be valuable versus our pre-COVID work experience.
Hi, this is Doreen. Welcome to Super with Cooper. Finding a job can be hard, and it's even harder during this pandemic. With record high numbers in terms of unemployment, there are more and more people competing for whatever positions are available out there in the job market. So today, I invited a thought leader who works as a headhunter to share with us his thoughts in terms of how we can stand out with our job applications, what makes a company and headhunters take a second look and really consider our applications despite the many different resumes or CVs or just job applications which pour in every single day to companies and headhunters. Hi, Pat. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Pat. Can you please introduce yourself to our viewers?
Currently the managing director of Icon Executive Asia. I'm also a co-founder of Shoppertainment Live. Icon is an executive search firm, and Shoppertainment is a live sim shopping network.
So many things keeping you busy, Pat. And again, thank you very much for your time that you are sharing with us. Now, as we go into our discussions, I would like to tap into your experiences as somebody who's in the business of recruitment or headhunting. And one of the questions that I have for you today is, what trends have you been seeing among companies in terms of what they look for in new team members, especially during this time?
I think right now is someone who can wear many hats. They might not be saying it, but more and more being a generalist is becoming more of an in-demand characteristic or a skill that we need to have.
Mhm.
Some companies, because if you're boxed into one position, most likely you're going to be less creative. So you got to have an understanding of the other positions as well, so you can connect the dots for. Yeah, so those are one of the things. And of course, learning agility is very important.
Okay.
Learning agility is basically the thing that would make you more sustainable in an organization. So especially during this trying times, Black Swan, we didn't expect this pandemic, so suddenly we had to pivot. Now, if your learning agility is quite long, then you're going to be a very costly expense for the organization.
Could you please give us an example of a role which came into a company, like, or a person, for example, who went into this certain role and then you notice that this person's role has evolved into other things?
A
Mhm.
fresh grad came in, and basically he went to different departments, and
Okay.
he was able to understand this particular department. He was able to understand this particular department. In a way, accidentally, he became like a management trainee.
Mm.
And the level of comprehension and the level of picking up, initially he was recruited to be a writer, eventually, and then he became a producer, and then he became this person, and now he's leading the research and development because of this particular person's learning agility and curiosity.
Thank you very much. And as a follow-up question, does the right attitude also depend on the company that you want to work for? Or are there like blanket, I don't know, perspectives or attitudes or behaviors that companies generally look for?
I think whether you're a bad employer or a good employer, you would appreciate the right attitude.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a bad employer, most likely even this person has the right attitude, and then this person comes into your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, the culture of that particular bad employer will squeeze this person out, or gonna uh, it's gonna run dry when it comes to the level of experience. It's gonna run dry the positivity of that person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's a good company, and then you have the right attitude, then that's a good formula for growth.
Mm-hmm.
If this person has the right attitude, proactive, thinker, curious, enthusiastic, then
Mhm.
basically if you fan the flames, it's gonna get bigger and bigger, right? But at the same time, as a good employer, you need to temper it as well. So you cannot be like, just setting them loose, and just because they have the right attitude, they're set.
Mhm.
They might, as mentioned, if you fan the flames too much, they might burn themselves.
When is the new normal, or when do we consider the new normal to start? Has it started already? And in the case, what are work application trends that you are seeing in the new normal happen in the new normal?
I think the new normal started when the lockdown started. So we are now in the new normal. Our past work experiences, or to be more specific, our COVID work experiences, the work experience we gained during this pandemic, might be valuable versus our pre-COVID work experience. Why? Because it's not gonna go back to normal. So if it's not going back to normal, and if you're thinking that your pre-COVID work experience will be still applicable post-COVID, most likely, in my opinion, it's not. Because the work experience that you've gained during the pandemic might be more valuable than pre-COVID work experience. And the landscape will not go back. It has already changed, and it's still gonna change. And if you're gonna get stuck in the past, and even if it's just for 2 years, it's not the same anymore. So that's why people are saying, maybe I'm not gonna work, I'm gonna wait it out. Well, we totally understand that, because if you are afraid to go out of your house, that's your call. But I think the goal here should not be to stop working, but to figure out a way on how to work despite of all the challenges. So basically, we're Team COVID. We're gonna be setting up higher expectations for the next generation, because we went through something as big as this. And if you don't have COVID work experience, I think that's going to be at your disadvantage moving forward. So I really suggest for everyone to figure out a way on how to find work during these trying times.
I mean, earlier we talked about, like what are companies looking for? And you said generalists, people who are flexible. But if you were to give some tips to people right now who are saying, okay, Pat, this is me, this is my work experience, how else I'm open to being a generalist, but how can I have an edge over so many others who are also applying for work?
Before we ask what employers are looking for, let's ask what they're looking at. And what they're looking at is their resume. So the average time a recruiter spends in a resume is around 6 seconds. And based on a study, we actually look at 3 things in a resume, and I can validate this with my experience. It's name, work experience, and your education. So again, 6 seconds, name, work experience, education. Why 6 seconds? Why? Because can you imagine how the volume of resumes we get every day? More so during the pandemic, because a lot of people got unemployed. The more resumes, the influx of resumes increased.
Mm-hmm.
So in that particular 6 seconds, or that small time that you get to spend with a recruiter, you got to make a strong impression already. And some might not agree with me, but the first page of your resume is prime real estate. So if you're going to put your career objective there, I'm not even going to read it. So I would really jump into your work experience right away. So I'm going to see if your work experience is aligned to what we're looking for. And then this is a very simple advice that I always say to candidates. Can you please summarize the years of experience? For example, you placed there January 2015 to June 2020. Can you please make it 5 years, 6 months? Now, if you put there 5 years, 6 months, do you know how we talk internally with hiring managers, with clients? We would talk to them, how many years of experience are you looking for? Oh, I'm looking for at least 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that 3 to 5 years, that's going to get stuck in our head. So if it gets stuck in our head, And then we see in a passing resume, in the sea of available resumes that passes through our hands every single day, and then there's like a parenthesis there, you place there 5 years, 6 months, you're really gonna catch our attention. It's like you made our jobs easier. So it's such a simple thing to do to easily stand out. Because if I see your work experience, sales manager, 5 years, 6 years experience, okay, you made my job easier because normally I'm gonna count, okay, 2015, 20 blah 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 or whatsoever. So if you, and we don't normally see that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you put it there? Even right now in LinkedIn, LinkedIn does it perfectly because when you go in LinkedIn, you can see the years of experience. Now, how we wish that was the same in the resumes that we're looking at, because we already have a number in our head, and if we see that number and it matches, then most likely we'll be more interested. So now, let's say with the work experience, and then we want to see if there's a certain level of alignment in your education. And then if I see that you actually practice what your undergrad was, great. And it would be even better if we see that you are a person who actually loves continuing education, like an MBA or executive courses. I think of I think of education like a sandwich. So you have two slices of bread. The first bread is your base bread, which is like your undergrad, and the meat in the middle is basically your work experience, validating your undergrad. And then the top slice of bread is basically your continuous education, like your MBA or your executive course, sandwiching the middle, basically validating your work experience. So it's like a sandwich. So you have a base bread, the middle, and then the top bread, and then you get to eat it. And that's how education should be, in my opinion. So yeah, and now if I've seen your work experience, you made it easier for me to understand less flowery words, short and sweet. Use industry terms that you're applying into. If you don't use industry terms, people like it when you speak their language. So if I'm a web developer and if I'm looking for a front-end developer and if I see their user interface, user experience, then most likely, okay, those are the words that my clients or the hiring manager told me to look for. And then I see 3 years of experience, which is what the hiring manager told me. You're gonna make it a lot easier for us to spot you in that small time. And then we go for your name. You got me interested with your work experience. You got my attention because of your experience, years of experience. And then good validation with your undergrad, continuous education. So when you're interested, you want to know more. You want to consume more, and more means social media. So we're gonna look you up, and we would need a name. So that's why your name is important, because we want to know more and validate our assumptions of how you are as a person. So we would check your Facebook, we would check your LinkedIn. So to gain more insight on how you are as a person.
Do cover letters still matter? Do people still use cover letters right now? Is that still a thing?
Yeah, you have to understand who are you sending it to. If you're sending it to the owner himself, there's an off chance that he won't be able to read that, because the amount of communication that goes through in the day of this owner. If you're gonna course it through someone like a recruiter, again, a sea of available resumes. So this person would most likely scan hundreds of resumes per day. So it depends on the situation. But right now, most of the resume courses through the recruiter, and if we're screening hundreds, and we want to be efficient, because we're also everything is urgent. When people ask for people, basically they're saying we want it now. So if we cannot, okay, so what's your career objective? I'm gonna take my sweet time here. No, recruiters actually figured out a way on how to be efficient. Again, a study mentioned, they track the eye movements of recruiter: name, work experience, education. It just goes through there, and I don't what do you call this? I don't recommend cover letters and career objectives, because right now, just show me your track record, and that basically would say a lot about you as a professional.
And another thing that I wanted to delve a little bit more into was the use of social media. You mentioned earlier on that you look at social media, or recruiters generally look at social media. That's why
Even
you're
owners.
even
Needless to
owners.
say.
There you go. That's why it's so important. And I also teach about the importance of social media in my personal branding workshops. But I do want to hear it from you also. How important is it, for example, or what kind of presence should you have? Let's start with LinkedIn. How important is it to have a presence on LinkedIn? And what kind of presence should you have on LinkedIn to be noticed by recruiters and by companies?
Well, if you're gonna post something, make sure it's relevant to your profession. So I highly suggest that we use LinkedIn to share our thoughts, to share, mainly use it for thought leadership.
Mhm.
Uh, and if you're going to be using a quote, the thing about quotes is it's hollow without experience. So if you're going to be sharing a quote, you might get some engagement, but hiring managers, decision makers, recruiters, we want something deep. So if you want to get noticed, don't simply share a quote, because a quote is just a quote until you affix your experience there. Then that quote actually makes sense. Make sure it's not hollow what you're sharing. So you're gonna be sharing, try and try again. In my years of experience in sales, the sales is made on the nth follow-up. So try and try again. You breathe life into a specific quote. We have no monopoly for words. People are saying, no, he said that first, she said that first. We don't have a monopoly over words. But you know how you can own words? You can own it through your experiences. And that's why when you say a particular quote, when you say just do it, Nike made it famous, yes, but if you put just do it and then your context of just do it, then that basically is yours. So use LinkedIn to share your thoughts, to make a stand. And definitely, again, as I mentioned, when we are interested in you, in your resume, we would want to consume more of you. So having content online would give us a glimpse of who you are as a person. So having presence in LinkedIn would definitely help. It can either go bad or good. If it's also a good way for you, if there are certain values and principles that you have and you would like to share, and companies would see that, okay, it seems like we share the same values, or companies would say, oh, okay, that's not aligned with our values. So you would already fend off those who are not aligned with you and attract those who are aligned with you. So again, those are the things that you need to understand about your professional content that you'll be churning out.
Now, how about Facebook? I think this is where it might get a little bit trickier because, I've been asked this question time and time again in my workshops. People ask me, Doreen, Facebook I use for personal stuff. So that's not something that my employer should have an opinion on. And the answer I usually give is, you know what, as long as you are connected with a certain organization and you acknowledge it on Facebook. Like for example, you say that you're employed by company X and you're connected with your colleagues or you're connected with your bosses, then automatically it doesn't necessarily make it just a personal account. It actually makes it, a hybrid, and you are also a carrier of the image of the company or organization that you work with. So Facebook, again, that's a tricky discussion. And I'd love to hear from you, Pat, on this. Like, what should people be posting on Facebook so they stand out? And so, they're able to present themselves in the best possible light. Since, as you said, companies, employers, company owners, employers, headhunters actually look people up on Facebook even.
If you put out content on the internet and then you don't manage your privacy,
Mm.
then it's not the fault of those people who saw your content,
Mm-hmm.
because you had the option to make it private.
Okay.
So if there are things that you've shared and then you take it against people who saw your content, you cannot control how they perceive you as well. Again, it's your call. If you want to be private, then be responsible with the things that you're putting out online. I'd like to use myself as an example. I think this was back in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go out a lot. I used to uh, drink and party even on weekdays. And I remember the content that I was posting before was, night out with my friends. And it's basically all the content that I've been posting. Not like now that you see my post about jobs, careers, and the likes. It's a lot more serious now. But during that time, I remember I was late on a Wednesday, and I went to the office, and I remember people were saying, "Oh, you're late. You went out to a party last night again, huh?" So, and I was like, "No, I was just late." And then that moment stuck with me. I was like, "Why is there instant judgment?" And
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was unfair for them to judge me just because of that. It seems to me like, well, I place it online, so it's a responsibility of mine, and I accepted it as friends, and I had the option to make it private, but
Mm-hmm.
they saw it that way, and in a way, the concept of you are your Facebook eventually became like that, and ever since that day, I was like, okay, maybe I need to manage my content. And I remember when I entered my MBA, um, there was this one time where I started posting about my talks, started posting about the books I've read, and eventually after 2 to 3 years, that's the same post. I still posted about night outs with my friends, but it's like 10% compared to
Mm-hmm.
1 out of 10 compared to it being the dominant content before. And there was this one time where my classmate approached me, and I was studying. I was reading a book, and he said, "You know what, Pat? You're so stuck up. Maybe you should go out and party." And I was like, "What?" And this is like a 2 year gap, right?
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, I'm not offended. I'm actually, I was like, oh, my plan worked. People don't see me right now. All they told me, all I see, Pat, is you do a lot of talks, you read a lot of books. And I was like, oh yeah, but I still go out. I just don't post it. So again, and then eventually it led me to this thing that I call perception management.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually manage how people perceive you with the content that you put online. So same thing. If you want to be private about your socials, then just set it on private.
Yeah.
But again, if you don't get to set how people perceive you if they saw your content.
Any final or additional tips for our viewers who are perhaps applying for a job right now or thinking of applying for a job in the near future?
I think the topic right now is hot on the internet about salaries, right? Because of that Twitter post about a fresh graduate asking for or
Yeah.
declining a 37,000 offer. And it's such a big deal because there's so many factors out there. So many factors on how you value yourself. People are saying that this person has strong communication skills and really top of the game. Some people are saying, yeah, but their context was I was the same, but I started from the bottom. And then others are saying that just because you started at the bottom, that should be our reality. And it just never ends. And then the cost, and then throw in the cost of living. No, you're just gonna keep stirring that pot, and it's a never-ending debate. But my advice to everyone, especially if you're thinking about what your actual worth is, my grounded advice is to survey the market. Survey the market and how, like for example, if you have 3 to 5 years of experience, try to survey how much companies are actually paying for a 3 to 5 years of experience. And if you don't like what you see and you still want to push for your ideals, then you might have a hard time. Now, people would say that is it impossible to get your ideal? No, it's not. Other people can get got their ideal salary, but doesn't mean that it's ideal, it's the norm. So you have to take it to yourself that, if you want to identify your worth, do your research and then really try to understand it on a more grounded level and put yourself out of that equation. Like if you're thinking about cost of living, take that out first. Try to survey the market.
Thank you very much, Pat. Much appreciated. And thank you for joining me on my blog. And I wish you all the best in all of your endeavors.
All right. Thank you so much for having me again, Doreen.
Thank you. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Some great tips and insights to help you and your job application stand out. I wish you all the best, and I also hope that you find the best work opportunity for you. I'll catch you again next time.